I knew when I saw them that they were on something with Bastion. From their pre-release reviews, the internet was thinking the same thing. Ryan, the guy I was working with, had a working relationship with them, so we began to talk about a collaboration. And we were working on our own HTML5 games at the time. HTML5's interesting idea was a promise of frictionless distribution, but after a couple of prototypes, that kind of got overshadowed by its performance. So that's when we learned about a new web technology, native client. Native client is a means to embed C++ code in your browser. For the engineers in the audience, everything you need to build and display Hello World in your web browser is on the screen right here. But without delving further into minutia, it's as straightforward as any platform port. Replace the compiler, include headers, link libraries, and polish. So here we are in June, talking with Supergiant and learning about native client, when we concluded, in theory, Bastion could be playable online without a full rewrite or without sacrificing quality. But it's far simpler to build a Hello World app than a full title port. So when we began evaluating what core pieces of the game need to be replaced. Bastion's core pieces were the XNA framework, DirectX, the .NET CLR toolchain, and years of work by Supergiant. DirectX and XNA could be replaced, had to be replaced since neither were built for a native client, but the CLR was our first serious question. Do we use an open source replacement or convert all the code to C++ and resolve an unknown number of bugs? We investigated both of these avenues to see what was out there. Mono would work as an alternate CLR, but there was also other tools that would convert from C# to C++. So the real question was whether performance concerns in C# or conversion bugs was going to be lower risk. Ryan got Mono working, so we bit the bullet and started production. Supergiant delivered us a functional build, and we started the port. DirectX became OpenGL, XNA became MonoGame, OpenTK, and Fmod. Up to this point, all the work was done on the PC, but it was time for the most critical piece, getting it working in the browser. There was still a lot of unknowns related to native client. In order to address them, we worked through a series of prototypes demonstrating individual aspects. Hello World app, then a rendering app, and finally a Mono app. After each individual aspect was proven independently, the game was ready to run in the browser. We had all the code compiled, launched our Bastion app, and were greeted by nothing. Yeah, it crashed during initialization. We had no output, no debugger, and no understanding of why. But subsets of the code would run, so we did a differential search of our code, tearing out everything, basically, until we identified the cause. After that, it was actually smoother sailing. Within a week, we had it going from crashing on a black screen to rendering text, textures, and user interactivity. But that wasn't going to last in the long run, so we had to figure out something to make it more maintainable. So we invested time into a proper development environment for the browser. We created a pop-up window for print statements, assertions, and stack traces. And with those tools in hand and later GDB support from Google, we got the whole game playable in the browser. The code structure was finalized. The critical user feedback we put in JavaScript because it could run when the entire thing had crashed. The new code was in C++ and the original game was C#. With everything settling in place, we had some time to start tossing around ideas. But before we did any of them, we asked ourselves, is this how it should behave? No particular order. Number one, nobody wants to wait for a download to finish, so we divided assets by level. Essential files are loaded when the game launches, and then level data is streamed in the background while the user is playing. Number two, the user's keyboard is a shared device. We ignored input events with meta keys because they're not critical for the game. It's really disappointing to see how many games already do that wrong. Number three, optional login. You need to have it so that people can go to a web page and just try it. Number four, use the screen space you're given. We cheated on that one and just used the 16 by 9. But if you're starting from scratch, do it at any resolution. Number five, if the user has saved data that might be out of date, confirm any unload actions. Window on before unload works great for this, so use it. Save your data to the, number six, save your data to the cloud. Our users were tied to Google accounts, so we tied the saved data to that account as well. But it meant that guest players had no saved data. Number seven, if the user isn't focused on the game, then they aren't playing it. Attention is the core resource of the user and should not be abused. Unless you're a background app, background music app, don't play audio when you're not the focused app. It's not just noise pollution though. It's also like computing power. So we actually disabled the game's logic when it wasn't focused. Number 8, in the unexpected event the user is waiting on streaming data, we actually displayed the status of the load. Users know their own connections better than you do, and so if it freezes in a way that they don't expect it to, they're going to know that it's frozen. Okay, so people have been digging Bastion, but what about we're amongst craftsmen, so maybe you can see the future games fitting into this model. Your friend broadcasts a message, hey you, check out awesome game URL. You click on the link, it immediately starts playing your compelling high-definition content. Subsequent game data is pulled to your machine via torrent-like API. That is a frictionless experience that we should aspire to. Thank you all for listening. If you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter. If you want more engineering stuff, you can follow that link there. It has a lot of the details that we went through to get it working. And thanks to Supergiant and Google.